You know, people always say time heals everything, but they never tell you that sometimes the pain just learns to live quietly inside you. It stops screaming, but it never really leaves. I still remember the night he left me, not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it was silent. So painfully silent that it felt like the walls of our apartment were holding their breath, afraid to make a sound that might shatter me completely. He didn't even look at me properly, just stood near the door, holding that suitcase I bought him for his birthday, and said, "I need some time, Anna. I'm not happy anymore." I remember nodding, like I understood. But inside, my chest was breaking apart, piece by piece. I didn't cry when the door closed. I just sat on the floor, staring at the slippers he left behind. One of them was slightly turned sideways. And for some reason, that broke me more than his words. Because even his leaving wasn't complete. It was messy, unfinished. Like the love we built. Before I continue, if you're here listening, maybe you've been broken too. Maybe someone walked out of your life like you were nothing. If you can relate, then stay till the end. Because this isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about what happens after. When the tears dry and you start to remember who you were before the pain. So, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and stay with me till the very end. I promise. It's a story you won't forget. Anyway, after he left, the first few days felt like I was living inside a memory. Every sound reminded me of him. The coffee machine, the creak of the bathroom door, the echo of his laughter that still lingered in the walls. I'd wake up and almost call out his name. Almost. I tried to distract myself, clean the apartment, rearrange the shelves, washed every single bedsheet twice, but the smell of him still clung to everything. That cologne, that stupid witty one he wore every day. I remember throwing the bottle into the trash and then taking it out again, because even though it hurt, it was still his. He texted me after a week. Just one message. "I hope you're okay." I stared at it for hours, and I didn't reply, because I wasn't okay. And because I wanted him to feel that silence, the same silence he left me with. It took me 3 weeks to finally accept that he wasn't coming back. And when I did, I broke. Not the loud kind of breaking, not the crying on the floor kind you see in movies. Mine was quieter. Like the ocean before a storm. I started staying up late, scrolling through his Instagram. He had changed his profile picture. He was smiling. And beside him was her, a younger woman, maybe in her mid-20s, with a face that looked like sunshine and new beginnings. Her name was Emma. I remember that name like a scar. They looked so happy. She wore my necklace in one photo. Not literally mine, but the same kind, same brand, same design. Almost as if he was trying to recreate me, but younger, fresher. That night, I cried, not because he replaced me, but because I realized how easy it was for him, how little I must have meant. I stopped eating properly after that. My friends tried to check in, but I avoided them. Every time someone said his name, I'd smile like I was fine, but inside, I was rotting. One evening, I was sitting on the balcony, staring at the sunset. It was orange. The same color he used to say reminded him of me. He once told me, "You're my sunset, Anna." Warm, a little sad, but beautiful. And I believed him. God, I believed every word. That night, I deleted his number, every picture, every message. And I whispered to myself, "He's gone. He's not coming back." It didn't make me feel better. But it was the first time I felt free. Days turned into weeks. And slowly, I started to remember what it felt like to live for myself. I joined a painting class, something I always wanted to do. At first, I couldn't even hold the brush right. My hands would shake. But then, one day, I painted something that made me cry. It was a woman sitting in a room full of shattered glass, but in her reflection, she was whole. That was the day I realized I wasn't broken, just transforming. I started to change, quietly, patiently. Got a new haircut, a new job, and for the first time in years, I bought myself flowers, not because it was a special day, but because I finally felt like I deserved them. Months passed. He never called, and I stopped expecting him to dot until one night, 6 months later, I saw his name flash on my phone. Ryan calling. I froze. My heart started racing like it remembered a song it never wanted to hear again. I didn't answer at first, but he called again and again, until finally, I picked up, Anna. He said softly. Just hearing his voice made my throat tighten. I made a mistake. There was a long silence. I didn't say anything, because part of me wanted to scream, and another part of me wanted to laugh. He continued. She's not who I thought she was. I thought I'd be happier. He paused. I miss you, Anna. I miss us for a moment. Time stopped. Every memory, every tear, every sleepless night came rushing back like a wave trying to drown me again. But I wasn't the same woman he left. So I said, quietly, Ryan, you left me for a younger version of the same lie. He didn't respond. I could hear him breathing. Heavy. Guilty. I'm sorry, he whispered. Don't be, I said, because you taught me something. He asked, what's that? And I smiled. Not with my lips, but with my heart. That I was enough. You just weren't ready for someone real. He tried to talk more, but I ended the call. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. The next morning, I painted again. This time, it was a door, half open, sunlight pouring in, and in the corner, a small figure walking toward the light. It was me. Finally leaving the darkness, he texted me again a few days later, but I never replied. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't anger. It's silence. It's peace. It's moving on without needing them to see it. And that's exactly what I did. I moved on. And somewhere deep down, I knew he'd never stop wondering what it would have been like if he'd stayed. Because in the end, he may have found a younger woman. But I found myself. And that's something he'll never get back. They say healing isn't a straight road. It's a circle, one that keeps bringing you back to the same place, until you learn what you were meant to understand. After Ryan's call that night, I thought it was over, that I could finally close that chapter and never look back. But the truth is healing doesn't come wrapped in final goodbyes. Sometimes, it hides in the small moments, like when you see his name in an old email. Or when a song plays on the radio and your chest tightens before your mind even realizes why. For weeks, his voice echoed in my head. I miss you, Anna. I miss us. It played on repeat, like a ghost that refused to rest. But I didn't call him back. I didn't unblock him. I didn't stalk his profile again. Instead, I went quiet. Silence became my new language. I poured everything I wanted to say into my art. My paintings became darker, then softer, until they started to bloom with light. It was strange. The more I stopped trying to forget him, the more he started to fade on his own. My therapist once told me, closure isn't when they apologize. Closure is when you stop needing them to. And for the first time, I understood what she meant. I started to wake up earlier. I'd make myself coffee and sit by the window, watching the sunlight crawl across my floor. I began to like my own company. I'd whisper to myself, you're doing okay, Anna. And slowly, I started to believe it. Work became my escape. My new job was in a small design studio. Quiet, cozy, filled with people who didn't know my story. That helped, because there, I wasn't the woman he left. I was just Anna, the one who always stayed late, who made art that spoke louder than words. One day, my boss asked if I'd showcase my paintings at a local art exhibition. It felt surreal. Me, the same woman who once couldn't even hold a brush without shaking. Now I was being asked to show my pain to the world. The night of the exhibition, I wore a white dress, simple, soft, the kind that made me feel weightless. People walked around, whispering, their eyes moving from one painting to another. And then someone stopped beside me. Your work, he said softly. It feels like heartbreak, but hopeful. I turned and saw a man, tall, quiet, eyes kind. His name was Noah. We talked for hours that night, about art, about silence, about healing. He didn't ask about my past. He didn't try to fill the silence. He just listened. And for the first time, I felt seen, not as someone broken, but as someone becoming whole. We started meeting often after that. Coffee on rainy mornings, walks by the riverside, quiet dinners where words were less important than presence. He had this calmness, like standing next to him made the world slow down. And for a while, I forgot about Ryan completely. Until one evening, I saw him again. It was a Sunday. I was at a cafe downtown, sketching something in my notebook. Noah had gone inside to grab us coffee, and when I looked up, Ryan was standing at the door. He looked different. Thinner, older, maybe, like life had taken something from him. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he walked toward me, slowly, carefully, as if afraid I'd vanish. Anna, he said, voice trembling a little, you look good. I smiled politely. Thank you. He sat down without asking. It was strange. The same man who once felt like my entire world now felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face. He fidgeted with his hands, then finally said, Emma left. I stayed silent. He continued. She said I wasn't the man she thought I was. He laughed softly, but it sounded sad. I guess karma's real. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He looked at me, searching, desperate. I know I don't deserve your time, Anna, but I just want you to know. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was too blind to see it. There was a time when those words would have broken me all over, again. But now, they only made me realize how far I'd come. I looked at him. Really looked and saw the man who left me for an illusion. And now, that illusion had left him too. I said quietly, you didn't lose me, Ryan. You let me go. He swallowed hard. Can we at least talk? Maybe start over? Before I could answer, Noah came back, holding 2 cups of coffee. He smiled at me, unaware of the storm sitting across the table. And in that moment, Ryan saw it. The peace he couldn't give me. The love he threw away. He stood up slowly, eyes glassy. I hope he treats you better than I did. He already does, I said softly. Ryan nodded, and for the first time, I saw regret so pure in his eyes that it almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. He walked away quietly, and as I watched him leave, I realized something beautiful. He wasn't my heartbreak anymore. He was just a lesson. That night, Noah asked if I was okay. I smiled and said, I am. For the first time, I really am. Weeks passed. Ryan never called again. But sometimes, I'd see his shadow in the places we used to go, and I'd smile, because I knew what he was remembering. The sound of my laughter, the warmth of my presence, the love he'd never find again. And me, I kept growing. My paintings started selling. People began to recognize my work. One critic even called my art a portrait of rebirth. And maybe that's what I was. A woman reborn from her own ashes. One evening, as I stood in my small apartment, the same one he once left me in, I realized it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt mine. Every corner had a story, but none of them hurt now. I poured myself a glass of wine, opened the window, and looked at the city lights shimmering in the distance. Somewhere out there, Ryan was probably wondering what went wrong. Maybe he still scrolled through my social media sometimes, looking for traces of the woman he once knew. But the truth is, that woman was gone, and the one who replaced her no longer needed his closure, his apology, or his love. I whispered to the wind, "Thank you for leaving, Ryan, because if you hadn't, I would have never found myself." The night air felt warm against my skin, and as the city hummed softly around me, I smiled, not because I had moved on, but because I had finally arrived. They say closure comes when you stop waiting for the apology that will never arrive. But I think closure comes when you realize you don't even need it anymore. Months passed since the last time I saw Ryan. The seasons changed. Winter came and went, and with every falling leaf, I shed another piece of the pain he left behind. Noah and I had grown closer, but not in a way that replaced my past. He didn't fill the void Ryan left. He simply reminded me that love doesn't always have to hurt to be real. He was gentle, patient, and he never tried to fix me. He understood that some scars weren't meant to disappear. They were meant to remind us that we survived. One evening, we were sitting by the river. The air was cold, the sky painted in bruised shades of purple and gold. I told him everything about Ryan, the betrayal, the loneliness, the nights I thought I'd never make it through. He didn't interrupt. He just held my hand, and when I finished, he said softly, "I think it's beautiful how you turned your pain into art instead of anger." I looked at him, eyes glistening. "Maybe that's the only revenge that ever matters," I said. He smiled, and for the first time in years, I believed that maybe, just maybe, I could love again. My art began to reach places I'd never imagined. An art magazine featured me. They called my journey the resurrection of Anna Moore. I laughed when I saw the headline, because it felt like they were talking about someone else. Then, one afternoon, I got an email. It was from a gallery in another city. They wanted to host a solo exhibition of my paintings. It felt unreal. Me, the woman who once couldn't sleep without crying, was now being celebrated for the very emotions that once broke her. I called my mother that night. She cried when she heard the news. She said, "See, Anna, even heartbreak blooms when watered with grace." The night of the exhibition, I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by my story painted across canvas and light. People moved slowly, whispering, admiring, some even crying quietly. And then I saw him. Ryan. He looked lost, like a man walking through a museum of his own mistakes. He walked toward one of my paintings, the one I titled "The Silence That Saved Me." It showed a woman sitting in a chair, light pouring over her face, while a shadow stood outside a closed door. He stood there for a long time, staring at it. Then he turned, and our eyes met. For a moment, time folded in on itself. It felt like everything we'd ever been, every word, every fight, every tear, all existed right there in that silence between us. He walked up to me slowly. "Anna," he said. His voice was soft, careful, like he was afraid to break the air between us. "You're incredible," he whispered. "I've been following your work. I saw your interviews, your success. You did everything I always knew you could." I tilted my head. "Did you?" I asked. "Because you didn't stay to see it." He looked down, ashamed. "I was stupid. I thought I wanted something new, but all I did was destroy the best thing I ever had. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because the look on his face said it all. He didn't recognize the woman standing in front of him anymore. He said quietly, "I still think about you, every day. Sometimes I walk by that old apartment building, and it's like I can still hear you laughing through the walls." I smiled, not the smile of forgiveness, but of peace. "Ryan," I said softly, "you're living in a memory, and I've already outgrown it." He took a step closer. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but if I could just talk to you, maybe we could." I stopped him gently. "You don't understand," I said. "This is the closure. Right here. This moment. You seeing who I became after you left. That's the ending we never got." He blinked, his eyes wet. "I just wish I could go back." "You can't," I said, "and I wouldn't let you if you could." He exhaled, a broken sound, almost like a sob, and then he walked away. No dramatic goodbye. No music, no scene, just quiet footsteps fading into the crowd. And that's how it ended. Not with a kiss, not with forgiveness, but with peace. Later that night, as I stood on the balcony of my hotel room, the city lights twinkling below, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't hate him. I didn't even pity him. I just hoped he found what he was looking for, even if it was too late for us. Noah called me that night. He said he saw the pictures from the exhibition. He said he was proud of me. And as I listened to his voice, warm, calm, steady, I knew I'd finally stepped into the life I was meant to live. The next morning, I opened my journal, the one I used to write in during the nights Ryan was gone. I flipped through the old pages, filled with heartbreak, poems, half-written letters I never sent. And on the last page, I wrote, "I thought losing him was the end, but it was only the beginning. He left to find something younger, and I stayed to find something truer." I closed the journal, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the girl he left. I felt like the woman I'd become. Months later, my artwork was featured in a national exhibition. The theme was rebirth. When I walked into that grand hall, I could feel my past, the pain, the silence, the heartbreak turning into light. And you know what? Ryan came that day too. He didn't approach me this time. He just stood far away, watching me from a distance. I could see it in his eyes, the realization that his ghost no longer haunted me, that I had turned it into art instead. And that's when I knew my story wasn't about revenge or regret. It was about return. Not his, but mine. My return to myself. So, to the woman listening right now, if he left you for someone younger, someone newer, someone he thought would shine brighter, let him go, because one day he'll look back and see that while she was his escape, you were his home. And when he finally realizes that, you'll already be long gone, living the life he was too blind to dream of. And that is the most beautiful revenge there is.